I describe grief as being like you're at the beach and you're in that zone where the waves are. And sometimes the waves are small, and other times, as you know, they can uh, build on each other. And all of a sudden, you're slammed down and you're rolling on the bottom of the ocean and being pounded on the ground. And that's kind of the way the experience is, and it varies by the hour, by the day, by the month,
Mm,
those types of things. And what I found is when I had those waves hit me, it was the gratitude, and that gratitude being the memories of all the great things that my life together with my wife had given me. And when I focused on those, it allowed that to calm down much quicker and helped me process through that and get up, keep going, and ex- continue to live and expand my life to reach out to other people and show my gratitude for those people as
right.
well, and it grows from there.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and radical blessings to all of you, and thank you for tuning in to this podcast called Take Back Your Mind. I am your host, Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center. Every week, I get to have a wonderful conversation with individuals who are, in their own way, opening their heart, taking back their own mind, and in their own way, inspiring other people to do the same. So today, I get to welcome Dr. David Horton. How you doing, Brother David?
I'm doing well today. I want to thank you first off for having me on your show and giving me the opportunity to talk to your listeners as well as you, of course. I'm looking forward to it.
Beautiful. Let me let people know who you are. Dr. David Horton, let me tell you, he has a lifelong passion for science and patient connection. He specializes in oncology. In pursuit of a job post-residency, David relocated to the Pacific Northwest where he met his wife, DeeDee. David's approach to patient care was rooted in respect, empathy, and the art of deep listening, which is extremely important these days. He founded Radiant Care Oncology, where he was able to build a practice around his strengths as a doctor and an oncologist. David and his wife, DeeDee, spent 32 years of love, self-growth, and adventure supporting and solidifying their devoted companionship. After DeeDee passed, David experienced profound grief that reshaped his outlook on life. Now retired, David has devoted his time to continuing to champion his late wife's mission and message by publishing her novel, Layer Upon Layer. So, David, you've gone through this grief experience. I mean, no one bypasses it, um, this particular experience. What has your journey taught you about yourself and how to navigate through this mm, experience that everyone's going to have to go through some way, shape, form, or another?
Gosh, it's almost hard to talk about all the things that grief has taught me. Um, you know, well, one, I think it goes without saying that grief is a universal experience. It's in my mind a synonym with life.
Yeah.
You know, the so I start with that, and of course I've also learned that everybody's perspective and experience of it is unique to themselves. Uh, so I can certainly share my experience where as a physician, and dealing in oncology, I dealt with uh, death commonly because a lot of my patients, of course, dealing with what they were dealing with were not only in the process, a lot of them in the process of dying, but even those that were going to do well and be cured, they were still experiencing great changes in their life, whether it was having the disabilities related to treatment, whether it was a loss of jobs related to those kinds of things. And so it was something that I saw in some form or fashion every single day. I had also experienced death of close family members, my parents in particular, and thought I had somewhat of a handle on what people might go through. And of course, what I found when I lost my soulmate, I call her,
Yeah.
was that I really didn't have a grip on it, and that it was more profound than I ever thought was possible. So that certainly was an education in and of itself. I think in many ways I learned the paradox of love, and the greater it is, the deeper the pain I think people are going to experience. And I think my real awakening was, and this actually was spurred by my wife, and that is she absolutely amazed me, having seen a lot of people go through the death process, how she did it
Mhm.
with such incredible calmness, acceptance, grace, love. And I think the biggest description I would give was gratitude.
Mm.
That was really what she focused in on, is making sure that she told me probably in particular, but also her friends and her loved ones, her appreciation for them and appreciation for their love, and showed gratitude throughout. And that has been my pathway that has gotten me through the grief.
That was gonna be my next question, what practices how did you navigate? I mean, this was your soulmate. How did you navigate the emotional up and downs of losing in the physical a soulmate of over 32 years?
Yes. Well, one of the things, the way I've seen grief is that to me there were two aspects to it. There was the emotional pain I was feeling, and then there was the reality of you have to get up and take care of yourself if you're going to stay in this world,
Right.
and the balance between those two. And uh, every day it changes, because I describe grief as being like you're at the beach and you're in that zone where the waves are. And sometimes the waves are small, and other times, as you know, they can uh, build on each other. And all of a sudden, you're slammed down and you're rolling on the bottom of the ocean and being pounded on the ground. And that's kind of the way the experience is, and it varies by the hour, by the day, by the month,
Mm.
those types of things. And what I found is when I had those waves hit me, it was the gratitude, and that gratitude being the memories of all the great things that my life together with my wife had given me. And when I focused on those, it allowed that to calm down much quicker and helped me process through that and get up, keep going, and ex- continue to live and expand my life to reach out to other people and show my gratitude for those people as
Right.
well, and it grows from there.
Right. I was reading a study, not just one study, but I was reading a couple of studies that showed that once you shift into conscious gratitude, you move from the limbic brain to the frontal cortex. It's like your whole brain structure changes. And, obviously, that also affects the chemicals that go in your body tempo from cortisol and toxicity to a much more tonic. So just you going into gratitude, you're thinking of the memories and the good times that you had, shifted a perspective. Obviously, you're still missing her, you're still grieving, but the perspective changes because you're now, feeling all of the good that you had with each other. And, so you consciously or inadvertently, just shifted your whole scan of your brain through being grateful and thankful for the years you had with DeeDee.
Yes.
So, did you sneak up on that? Did you already know that technique? Now, I won't call it techniques, but just a way of living, of going into gratitude for any big or small thing.
Well, I had some handle on it because I think Dee and I lived our lives that way, where we spent a lot of time in gratitude for each other. We did not have children, and both of us were the largest focus of each other's lives. And
Mhm.
we spent a lot of time treating every day like it's birthday, anniversary, those types of things. And
Uh-huh.
we were always expressing our love and gratitude for each other. But I think in many ways, what was amazing in the experience that we had was the the experience of basically my wife was in hospice for 9 months.
Mm.
And during that time period, with the absence of children and really family being either a long way away or being unable just because of their own health issues to help, it was going to be very much a long haul. And I had incredible surprises where I had mentors for DeeDee's youth, mainly being a couple of coaches who canceled winter vacations, kind of the first winter vacation they'd had in decades because of
Mm.
coaching, cancel their vacation and stay in the area to help be available to help us in care. And even
Mm.
bigger than that, I had a teammate of Dee Dee's from youth who came, and when she wasn't working as a flight attendant, came and lived in our home and helped me take care of her. And that allowed me to be present the entire time. And my wife had a brain tumor, which affected her ability to communicate at times, and it had ups and downs based on brain swelling. But I was always able to be there in the good moments. And
Mhm.
so that also expanded my gratitude, just seeing these people show that kind of love and gift. And that has inspired me uh, to want to pass that gratitude on to find where I can have that impact on others. And I think I did that as a physician, but this is entirely different because now it's more community based. And
Right.
it's me focusing in on my neighbors and the people around me, my community, and trying to give back and be there when other people need me to be alert and available, like my friends were.
Right. Now you're speaking to the power of community. Everything you just described is carries a power to it. I know here at Agape we have a whole ministry devoted to people making their transition, or people that have transition, or people who need long term care. And we have groups of people that not only visit people in the hospital, but assist when someone has made their transition. And so you're speaking of community as also provides an uplift for people to navigate through grief better, if I can use that word. And you again just rolled into one of the most powerful tech spiritual technologies, which is community. Again, was this conscious, or did you bump into it?
Well, I would say a combination of those. it's, I think one of the big things that I learned was that we typically will approach people with the idea that we care about you and let me know if you can do something for me.
Mhm.
Help. And, that kind of thing. And what I learned very quickly, just because of the overwhelming nature of what I was going through, is when you're in that situation, you don't know what to ask for.
Mm.
If you could plan out what you needed, you'd either be doing it or trying to arrange for that to be done. And so I think that was the part that changed hugely for me, is having these people who, instead of just saying, "Hey, I am here to help you if you need it," they would just show up and ahead of time thinking, "What can I do?" And the best example I have is the friend who said, "Gosh, I can just imagine the situation you're in." And she already had made arrangements for changing her job and being able to make sure that she could actually physically be there as much as possible. And that's where I think I've taken my gratitude and my community involvement to a greater level. I keep my ears to the ground, and something's happening in a negative way to people, I'll go over to their house and look around. Can I mow your lawn? Can I do other things? I just start doing it. If they want to come
Right.
out, and that opens the door for them to go, gosh, he's not just saying that, he means it. And then they feel comfortable asking for more, and it makes you more available to them.
And that's powerful. When I do celebration of life services, sometimes called memorial services, I will oftentimes invite people not only to remember their loved one, but to think of a wonderful quality that they carried. And then, as a part of the grieving process, um, live in that quality as best you can as a vibrational living memorial for that individual. So they're still alive, not only in memory, but they're alive in your life. Like the things you took on in terms of helping other people, is kind of a vibrational memorial to DeeDee, that she's alive in your generosity, in your giving, in your kindness, and in your compassion. So it makes the process a lot lighter than merely missing her. You've stumbled onto, or on purpose, basically living in her, memorializing her in your actions, which is a very powerful spiritual technology. And so be it, you have a book that you're publishing, that you've published, that she wrote, called Layer Upon Layer. I think that's also a part of your memorial vibration to her as well. And what is this book about, and what do you think that DeeDee wants to convey to the people now through this book? And I applaud you for actually taking this on, to actually publishing her book. Yeah, powerful.
Thank you, Michael. Well, if I could go back to one thing before we discuss that, is that possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. I wanna go back to the idea of the the memories of people,
Yes.
because I really do feel like people are still here. And what I've described to people, as we all know, when we think about it's the love that they've given us that's still there.
Mhm.
And just like we can, the difference in the experience of a child who's loved by their parents as they approach loss and grief and other things, you can feel their presence as they help you get through that. And that was also something that I really have, it resonates so much more with me now, having lost DeeDee, who left so many gifts for me behind. I feel her every day. And so I think that's a lot of what you're talking about. And I credit DeeDee a lot on that, because I think watching, she had not only showed me in many ways how to live in my life with her, but she showed me how to die.
Mhm.
And she did it with such grace, and I like your description. I think she raised the vibration, and
Mhm.
she's the one that brought in, by showing gratitude at a time she had so many reasons to think that life hadn't treated her fairly. She was only 52 when she passed.
Mhm.
Instead, she went the whole other direction, which I think made all of us that were interacting with her feel that way, and raise the vibration for all of us. And that's where I feel her every day, because I, again, going to that gratitude and love and those aspects, the positive aspects of the living experience, as opposed to the presence of the negative, is why I feel her every day. So I do feel like she's here every day with me.
Absolutely. In my realm, that's truth. I mean, the spirit lives forever. And so many people have testimonies of that in terms of having what they call near death experiences. I call them near life experience, where people come back and absolutely testify to the fact that we are here to perfect our loving. They've met their loved ones on the other side, things of that particular nature. My friend Anita Morgiani, who died from cancer, but then came back after having a wonderful healing with her father on the other side, came back with a great testimony of the eternality of who we are on a spiritual realm. But she was also very present with the people in the hospital, when they thought she was dying. And
Yes.
so everything that you're saying here is now, used to be like woo woo years ago, is now becoming more scientifically proven that spirit lives. People are here. They're with us, assisting us, watching, and things of that particular nature. So you're carrying that vibration, and it carried you right into layer upon layer.
Yes, yes. Thank you for bringing me back to that. My wife was she was a highly sensitive person, and I've found that when I describe her that way, a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about. I bet I'm sure you do, Michael, but a lot of the listeners may not. That's actually a trait that was described in the psychologic literature in the mid 1990s. And what's funny about this is, my wife was the most incredibly observant, uh, empathic,
Mm.
intuitive person that I'd ever known. And she was very quiet, very always approached life by asking questions and never putting judgment on any answer she would that someone would give. She just asked more questions. I think she was trying to understand it herself. And she had a broad experience both as a gifted athlete when she was young.
Mm.
She went on to uh, teach middle school for a decade, and then she went on to coach college basketball for over a decade.
Wow.
And in that time period, she collected up a whole lot of experiences related to the challenges that women face in our society. And a lot of that being the messaging and cultural messages that are sent to women that affect women who want to be more ambitious and independent and things like that. And so when she in her later years, she decided to write this book. And the reason it's called Layer Upon Layer is she was looking at the layers in our society of these kinds of things, the social messages, the interaction we have that end up affecting the relations between all people.
Right.
Because we're either sending a positive message or a negative message, a supportive message or a non-supportive message, a loving message or a non-supportive message. And she thought it was particularly difficult on a world that she knew well, which was being a female. And I think what
Mm.
she wanted to do in this book
Mm.
is to one, share her own experience, and 2, what I think what motivated her to write it is, although we've seen some improvements in the opportunities women have, there's still those same cultural messages that she was seeing even 20, 30 years later from her childhood experience, and said, "Well, we need to talk more about this. We need to bring it to the public attention, and we need to have these conversations because so much of it is unconscious. It's
Yes.
it's not people not loving each other and caring about each other. It's what I learned from her, where I grew up in a man's world. All brothers, my father's all brothers, the generation before that, all brothers, and my mom, the only female among all brothers. So I walked into my relationship with her all from a man's perspective.
Mm.
And I think she patiently, talked me through that in because she's, her highly sensitive nature, she would just ask questions, and slowly I would catch on, right?
You
Makes
start
me
you
grow.
start to you start to unravel some of the, masculine, perspectives, the dominant masculine perspective that kinda sometimes squashes that feminine vibration. You say she talked you through it so you could actually become self-aware that
Exactly.
you were in the dominant culture, but that culture wasn't necessarily correct. It was just dominant.
Exactly, exactly, and invisible male privilege is how I visible memorize that. Absolutely, I agree with her, and and so I think in this book, that's really the kinds of things that she's trying to encourage, and that's having all of us look at those aspects of our society. She explored invisible male privilege, the importance of mentorship and positive role models, in her particular book, it's female positive female role models, but it applies to males as well. The messaging for males needs to come from positive role models that help break down some of these messages that are unintentionally causing disconnection. And it involves people breaking away from social expectations. And
Yeah.
for women, that's a huge challenge because that's stacked on them from the beginning to pay more attention to other people's needs and comforts and not focus so much on their aspirations and desires and needs. Whereas it was obvious to me, and one of the reasons I was kind of asleep to it when I first got together with her was no, my life was lived with people telling me, "No problem. What you wanna do that? Work hard, go for it. It's all within your grasp." And then of ending up in places like medical school, but the women I was interacting with too, by the way, they were lucky enough probably to have parents that were supportive of those ways of thinking. And so I walked into my world with her thinking that there's more honesty about your needs and what you're trying to accomplish in your own life. What I learned from her is no, she was taught to be a placater, be quiet. The messages women are taught: be nice.
Mhm,
Your job's to be pretty and watch out after other people's needs.
mhm,
And therefore she had herself in the back of the bus.
mhm.
But it took her a long time to come forward with that because of her programming. Once she did, it took time to work our way out of that. And I, of course, watched her uh, blossom in so many ways. And more importantly, my message for readers, and that's why I think this book is for everyone. It's not just a woman's fiction book, it's also for males because that understanding that perspective, it changed my life. It took what was a great marriage and made it, in my mind, off the charts good.
Right, because you changed. You
Made
changed.
me change
Yeah,
for
you're
the
the
better.
right, the unconscious, male dominant perspective, which was unconscious. I mean, no one, gave you a manual on being dominant, but it was unconscious dominant perspective that ultimately eroded through, you're saying, her questioning. So you change and you become a better version of yourself, which meant your relationship had to become better because you were better. You were a better version of yourself. And so I'm glad you said that this is a novel, right? This is a novel. Yeah.
That's right.
And this book, this novel, is not just for women, it's for everyone. Eh,
That's right.
yeah.
Yes, it's a novel that's actually 2 stories that are interwoven. It
Mhm,
it uses the perspective of the same heroine, which was one of the things that DeeDee wanted to address, all of the male savior trope that's the typical story that's out there.
mhm,
This is a female heroine, and it tells the story's told from the heroine's perspective at 2 different points in life, as a high school senior playing basketball at a high level and
mhm,
as a coach 20 years later.
mhm,
And through this, it's in the youth character, this is a character who has dreams that sports can bring her through, get her into college, have a profession she can do something that she loves, and yet she lives in a home and a community and a cultural bubble, if you will, that's discouraging all that. It's pushing, you need to be popular, you need to look a certain way, putting on your sweats and going and shooting basketballs. No, that we don't do that kind of thing. She was
mhm.
fortunate enough to have a good mentor, this character, and it allows her to hold on to those dreams that you have and be true to your authentic self. Listen to yourself and aspire to do those things. 20 years later, the same character's mentoring other young women to do that. And what she finds is that the same types of communications were given them in a lot of ways. But most importantly, while she's mentoring them, she also realizes she hasn't gotten there all the way. And that's that I think is a testimony to how deep those teachings really are. And yeah, of course, the question is how to get the rest of the way. And everybody deserves to be look deeply within themselves, identify their authentic self, and be that. And so, to me, that applies to males, females, everyone.
Right. So she's actually showing the radical tension between the ideal that she holds and then the actual evolution of that idea with a realization that she's not quite there yet, but constantly evolving into that. One, and two, she's drawing from her own the book is drawing from her own experience because she played basketball, and then she was also a coach. So she's drawing from her own unique experience of this, dominant male perspective in sports as a woman, and this is the, underlying energy of this particular novel. How many times have you read this novel yourself, personally?
Well,
And when you're reading the novel, I mean, do you, like, re-meet her again through the page?
I do. I do. I've read this novel many times because it actually, Dee Dee Well, DeeDee did not, walk into writing this with this outcome as a plan. She started just writing a story from the young female perspective, and when she got to the end of that, she said, "Where am I going with that?" And she wasn't sure, so then she said, "Well, I got another perspective from the experiences I've had, and I'm gonna tell that." And then when she got to the end of that, "Where am I going with that?" And that's when she came up with the idea of alternating these back and forth. And so it's an interesting way of doing it, I believe, because you're the it's a single season, if you will, that are going on in those different years, but you're bouncing back and forth between the 2, seeing how they kinda weave together. And it last but not least, it puts big emphasis on mentorship.
Right.
And there's breaks between that are communications that show the value and the importance of mentorship to help people get to that authentic goal of being yourself,
Right.
best version.
And you use the word bounce because she's playing basketball. It's
Exactly.
it bounce back and forth.
Exactly.
I also think that, novels that carry intrinsic truths are very important because oftentimes people, they'll shy away from, like, a nonfiction book, you know, but they'll go towards a novel that, I like both. But sometimes a novel, we call that, a friend of mine calls that putting spinach in the ice cream, you know, that you actually have a novel that's carrying these themes of someone navigating through this dominant masculine culture of assertion and competition and winner takes all as the feminine is rising up, which is it's kind of a dynamic independence of caretaking, but self-care and, an integration of the masculine, but not to the detriment of the feminine. All of those themes which are becoming more, let's say popular, but they're becoming more mainstream now. She's carrying this in a novel, which I think is a great idea, layer upon layer as a novel. And people like sports, people like women in sports now. Women's basketball is taking off. And so, what motivated you? What was the motivation for you to say, "Hey, here's my wife's book. I'm gonna publish this"? I mean, was that to help keep her alive in your space? Or what was your vibration to do that?
Well, Michael, it's a combination of things. The obvious part is love my wife beyond words, and I certainly want her to be remembered, and I want to honor her with this. But
Mhm,
the real reason why it happened was she had been working on this novel for about 6.5 years,
mm,
and she was in the process of, she had edited it down, trying to get it down to the publishable length, and she was on the last edit when she experienced a seizure, and it turned out she had this brain tumor. During her illness, I went ahead and printed that off, just plain old, paper printer, and I had a number of her friends read the book because she wanted to see what they thought and have conversations about it. It was that important to her. Well, in the process, I happened to give it to the daughter of one of my friends who read it, and I didn't know her very well at the time, and she said, "Gosh, this is great. I've experienced these things. I had to do bake sales to for us to pay for the material to make our our outfits for the tennis team when I was in high school, and the football players were getting decked out and having meals, and
right.
so I get all this as I read through this." And she said, "Gosh, I feel like I just read a self-help book, but nobody was preaching to me."
Uh-huh.
And so she was busy just, I mean, telling me, "You gotta get this out." And so I went back and told Dee that, "Gosh, I think people need to read this, and if it's okay with you, I if you're okay with it, I will finish the final edit and try to get it out." And her answer to me was, "I'm fine with it. I don't wanna put the pressure on you to do it, but you have to just promise me one thing, and that's protect the heart and soul." And I think I've done that, and as a result, I have read it many times because I had read it in parts while she was writing it, but I had to pick up the torch at the end and kind of take it over the finish line. It was all using her writing, but I had to structurally do some changes with help. It wasn't all me. I had professional help, But I was integral to all of that, so I had to read a lot, and so I probably read it 20 times in this process as you proof it at various times and those types of things.
She's teaching you beyond the veil.
Yes, and I love it because I do want to go back to one thing you said earlier. Interestingly, this book is not a memoir; it's fictional, but I can tell you there's some dramatization done, but all the events either happened personally, DeeDee personally experienced or observed herself as a player, teacher, and coach. And
Mhm.
so in a sense, it's a conglomeration of that. So I think in many ways it is. It's not really fiction in reality.
Right, right. Right,
Yes.
right. But
Yes.
oftentimes we used to say, if you really wanna understand history, you have to read English books about around that particular time of history you wanna study because you're gonna get the real history, but if you read a history book, it's gonna be from dominant person's perspective of history.
Yes.
But if you read English books, you'll get the real history. So in this way, this is a novel, but it's carrying the, the actual incidents that actually happened and a perspective, her perspective, the dominant perspective, and how she navigated through it. It's all in there and in a very powerful way. That's why I like novels that carry that kind of dynamic. So on one level, this is a living memorial that you're doing. On another level, this is real valuable information to get out there in a very entertaining way. And so after reading this book 20 times, how would you synthesize it and say, how can we achieve more balance and better connection in this world, masculine, feminine? What would you say based on your wife coming through you at this time?
Well, probably the biggest descriptor would be awareness.
Mhm.
And awareness is a term that's thrown about, but I think in many ways it's this book is really directed at women becoming aware of the messages that are being sent. And
Mhm.
I mean, they're aware of the obvious ones, but no seeing a path out of that and having the support where if you don't have a supportive social structure or family around you, l- look to mentors. And mentors can be found in books, of course. They have an incredible ability to open people's minds and change things for people without you ever having met the person.
Right.
And so I think awareness is a big thing. And the reason why I think this novel is good to be read by men as well is I think hopefully it will bring some awareness to them of the unintentional signals that are being sent and understanding better how they're being interpreted. Because what it's doing is it's accidentally causing disconnection
Mhm.
and it's not intended, and until you understand the subtleties of that, you're not gonna fight your way out of it. I wanna give a personal example. For me, it was my wife patiently educating me about my overfunctioning. Males are classic overfunctioners. We're the battlers. We wanna fix things. We wanna be the protector, those types of things. Well, it interferes with listening to what's really being said because 'cause you're too busy protecting to actually listen because 'cause you've got an answer, that kinda thing.
Right.
And
Or you're gonna try to fix something before you totally understand it. We're gonna
exactly.
move in and just try to fix it and handle it rather than just listening to what's happening and letting the right, action emerge. Yeah.
Exactly, and frequently the right action has nothing to do with you, right? I mean,
Right.
it really has to do with listening and supporting the person as they're processing through the battle themselves,
Right.
and that's it sounds easy, but it took a long time for me to recognize the placating and things like, I can't tell you I, for example, couldn't say to her, "Great, next time I do it, tell me about it." And
Mhm.
why? Because once I understood what a placater and the way she was thinking, I suddenly realized, my gosh, you know what it took for her to calmly sit down and in a loving way explain this all to me? It took her diving deep, 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 deep to get there. And so she's
Mhm.
not going to do that over and over again. Right. And so that's when I went, okay, I get it. I need to do the work. And
Right.
relationships are built on work and understanding each other and not assuming that we actually know each other and they're seeing the world the way we are. And that those are the layers you have to unravel and do it with love and respect and compassion, trying to connect.
Layer upon layer. And
Yes.
you mentioned listening. Deep listening is almost a lost art in our society now, where everyone is just shouting their opinion, whether it's on social media at some level. Everyone's trying to just share what they call is their truth. And there's very little listening. And when there is a modicum of listening, it's often listening to give a retort to what you're hearing rather than to actually listen to what someone's saying. I will often say people, listen underneath what's being said, because oftentimes what's being said is not really capturing the underlying emotion or feeling. And so words are often insufficient to really explain that, but you're not going to catch the nuance unless you deeply listen, but not listen to jump in and say your side, but just to listen. And that's, you said your wife was sensitive. You said your wife was empathetic. Those are deep listening skills to be
Yes.
have a level of empathy, a level of sensitivity, which again balances out that whole dominant frequency of I'm going to fix this or I'm right. Yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes, very much with empathy and compassion, especially when people are grieving whatever it is, the loss of a job, loss of a companion, all those kinds of things. They just want their pain to be witnessed, and they want to know somebody's willing to sit there with them through it. That is the
absolutely.
that's huge. It's
And not judge them for whatever it is that they're going through emotionally or otherwise.
Exactly, and that's why I do feel my wife every single time I read this book, because the main character, as in youth as well as in adulthood, always as she's processing things, it's only in asking herself questions, deep questions, you keep asking them, and she still comes back with love and compassion toward others as she figures out for herself what works for her and what's the right path for her.
Yeah. You're also speaking about something that's very important, that people actually experience the questions they live in. And oftentimes people are not asking empowering questions. They stay on the surface. They'll ask what's wrong, maybe. They'll ask who's to blame, but they don't ask a deeper question that allows for that innate wisdom to be activated and to actually guide us. And so, and many times people aren't even asking questions at all. They're fixed in their perception, their point of view, their perspective, and they want to
Yes.
prove that rather than live in asking of questions, which leads to dialogue, and then dialogue leads to you have a someone has a thesis, someone has an antithesis, but then you rise up and there's a synthesis based on deep listening, and
Yes.
so I'm feeling that this is some of the things being carried out in this novel, Layer Upon Layer by DeeDee. DeeDee Horton, did she take your last name?
She did, that again is a great example. She obviously believed, largely in women's empowerment, and we certainly talked about the idea that she didn't need to change her name, but
Mhm.
she chose to. I
Right.
I think if she was where she was in the middle or end of her journey, she may have done that differently, because I think
Mhm.
she'd come a long way from taking away those older ways of thinking. I also wanna go back to something you said, Michael. One of the things that's been interesting to me is in a lot of the conversations I've been having with women about this book, I've been very surprised that and these a lot of these are very aware and I would say enlightened women. And I brought up the point of how seem to not recognize that when women ask a question, more commonly they're actually making a statement. And I
Mm.
said that, and I gave as an example. I said, you're driving along the road, and if your companion is a female, she'll say, "Do you feel like having a stopping to get a Coke at the next exit?" And the guy would look over and go, "No, I'm good." And then you just keep driving. Well, and here's what I thought was funny about it, Michael, was when gave that as an example, I could see the eyes do like this, and they looked at me and said, "God, I realized I hadn't even thought about it, but I do that all the time." And I went, "That just shows you how so much is happening at a subconscious level, even with something so obvious."
Absolutely.
So the more conversation and the more sharing, the clouds spread, and we start to see each other and see, hear, and feel each other in a better way, and therefore we're more connected.
Yeah, you pick up cues that are not gonna happen over the tongue. They're gonna happen with facial expressions, silences, what's not being said. As you just said, sometimes a question is actually a statement. "Are you tired, baby? Don't you wanna pull over and use the restroom?" "No, baby, I don't." "Well, I do."
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, this has been fantastic. So the book is layer upon layer. Is it available now for people to purchase?
It is available. In fact, Michael, people have been asking me, that what can they do to support the mission of getting these messages out about women's empowerment, the idea of helping all of us break some of these, social, cultural messages that we're getting that are actually pushing us apart. And what I've kind of told them is, yes, if they can go to Amazon and order layer upon layer, what I'd appreciate is that they read it and give us a positive review so we can start getting the word out, and most importantly, tell your friends and family about it, and let's get more of these kinds of conversations going, because I like what you're saying. The only way we're going to get there is sitting down and having true, meaningful, sincere, loving, compassionate conversations. And we need to start by asking questions rather than making statements.
Absolutely. Layer upon Layer by DeeDee Horton and Dr. David. Any way that people can contact you? Anything, any last words that you want to say that maybe when we end this conversation, you might say to yourself, "Oh, I forgot to say that." Is there any of that percolating in you?
Well, I guess the one thing that they can do if they want to learn more about the book, they can read a bit online at layeruponlayer.com. Can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram as well.
On Instagram, is it under Layer Upon Layer or David Horton?
Layer upon layer, a book.
Very good.
Mhm, mhm.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, this has been great. Thank you for your time. And you're a part of you're part of a movement. This book, your wife through you, is a part of a movement because that the feminine energy is rising. The divine feminine is rising. I think for such a time as this in human history, where we're at a crisis point, where the whole masculine paradigm, the patriarchal dominant power is disintegrating, even though there's last gasps of it to hold on across the world, across the nation. But this whole rising of the divine feminine with the awareness that we have both within us. We all have the feminine and the masculine within us, but it has to be integrated in a very mature way. So I feel that your wife's book and you are bringing it into expression is a part of that whole movement of all of us becoming more aware, more conscious, of the integration of these frequencies so that we can live at a higher order of being and actually move from human doing to actually being a human being that
Yes.
that informs our doing from that
Yes.
that higher frequency. So I applaud you for creating a living memorial for Dee Dee, for explaining how she affected your psyche, and for you taking it forward to the masses that perhaps somebody's gonna pick up a novel and their life's going to be changed. Thank you so much.
Yes. And and Michael, the other message I have for people is for women, there's lots of guys out there that are men out here like you, people like you, that are trying to push these messages forward to people, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you for doing that. And for the men out there, I want to let them know that following the teachings for people like you and embracing the kinds of things we're talking about is going to make their life better, because the more connected we all are, the better world we have, and that's what we all want. And thank you I want to thank you for being a big part. Obviously, you're a leader in this. So thank you. I've learned a lot about you in preparing to come talk to you. And I'm a follower now. So I want to end by saying peace and blessings to you and your listeners.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate you having me.
Thank you. This has been great. Because we want people to know that kindness and patience and love and peace are not wimpy emotions. They are the real power. And the whole dominant masculine might makes right is actually a pseudo power. But the real power is us resting in our heart and generating our doing from that space. That's real power. And so thank you for being with us today, David. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much.
God bless.
I bless you.
Hey everyone, you've heard me in beautiful conversation with Dr. David Horton, his wife's book that he's putting out there by DeeDee Horton, Layer Upon Layer. And so you know how to get it. Thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful and bright day. And this is another way that you're taking back your mind that may have been hijacked by the dominant perspective, and for you now to come into a lot more balance. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, David.
Peace.
Peace and blessings. I truly hope that you are enjoying Take Back Your Mind podcast. The Take Back Your Mind podcast is sponsored primarily by the Agape International Spiritual Center. In other words, everything that you see in terms of the staff that puts this together, the editing, the equipment, all of this is sponsored by our Agape International Spiritual Center. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'm inviting you to support the sponsor. Support Agape. Simply go to agapelive.com and make a donation. And say in the donation that you are supporting the podcast. It allows us to keep broadcasting. It allows us to keep putting these magnificent moments together with these wonderful people that I get to interview. We keep having the possibility of updating the equipment that's necessary and providing the wonderful content that many of you are writing in and saying, I really love the podcast. Support the podcast. Support the sponsor. Agape International Spiritual Center. agapelive.com. You can also text to donate. You can text the word give to 424-321-6243 and put podcast so that we know that you're really supporting this wonderful podcast. Our secondary sponsor is Adaptozen, Adaptozen. This is my superfood greens. It's nutritionally dense because I teach spirit, mind, and body. We want our body temples to be healthy. So one of the products is my superfood greens. You can go to nutrarise.com. Those three little lines you see, you hit those three little lines and you'll see Adaptozen. There's two products, my superfood greens and a product called Elevate, which are organic mushrooms for your health. You can put both in your smoothies so that you have main ingredients for the health of your body temple. These are our sponsors. Primary sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center. Secondary sponsor, Adaptozen. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be wise. Circulate and share. Peace and blessings. As I like to say, dynamic blessings to you. Blessings mean a greater confirmation of life upon you. Blessings are always dynamic, meaning as they come into your life and as you receive them, it changes your perception, which then changes your life experience. So it's dynamic, it's not static. Dynamic blessings to you. This is our moment to have a few moments of sacred silence, of meditation, which allows us to withdraw our attention from the world and how we react to it, to go into a deep sense of interiority, go to our inner awareness, where we begin to have an awareness that we are awareness itself. That's very important what I just said. You are awareness itself. As you become aware of yourself with the intention to unfold, the observer effect is kicked in, and based on your observation of yourself, transformation takes place. With intention, it takes place at a much more rapid pace. Let's turn within at this moment. And I want you to practice having dominion over your attention. Right now, think about your left hand and place your attention there. Notice you can now think about your right ear. Place your attention there. Place your attention at the top of your head, the crown chakra. Notice you can ultimately have dominion over your attention and where it goes. With the awareness that where attention goes, energy flows. So, right now, be aware that you're establishing an intention to wake up to your glorious nature. Just be aware of that. Say in substance, I'm now intending to wake up from the intoxicated sleep of separation from the infinite. Now with that intention, observe yourself, become aware of the breath, become aware of any thoughts that may emerge in your mental landscape, your sky of mind, any emotions that may be arising, even sensations of the body temple. As you're being aware of all of this, even sounds. Don't label the sounds noise, just sounds. Notice that your awareness encapsulates the thoughts in your mind, the emotions, the sensations, feelings. But who are you? You are awareness. With increasing awareness, there's increasing choiceability. Right now, choose to be happy. Choose to be joyful. This choice is not a function of external conditions or circumstances. It's a function of your awareness and your connectivity to the source of all creation. Choose to be happy right now. Choose to be joyful, full of joy now. Sit in this choice as a point of conscious awareness. slight smile on the face, giving you face value. Choosing joy and aware of all that is passing through you. Thoughts, opinions, emotions, sensations, sounds. None of these shall move you as you choose to be transformed by the renewing of your mind and not being conformed to the world. What are you choosing right now from expanded awareness? Wholeness, prosperity, joy, happiness, peace. What are you choosing? Choose it. And out of the silence of our deep introspection, leading to a dynamic transpection, we choose gratitude now. We choose to be grateful for our life. And in this feeling tone of gratitude, we become available to more dynamic blessings flowing through and as us, changing the very trajectory of our life from good to better. Now, we give thanks for this. We choose to feel this is a great day, a great afternoon, a great evening, and it's all happening now. And so it is. Amen. As you slowly open your eyes, maintain that slight smile. And be aware that you are pure awareness. Go forth into your day with the eternal in your step, the eternal in your thought, the eternal in your conversation. And watch what happens. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.